Hey everyone, welcome to Understanding Jira Issue Types. This is part of our getting started with Jira and a class for absolute beginners. And I'm excited to be here. This is going to be our course number 3 in this entire series. So make sure you go back on my YouTube channel if you missed course number 1 or course number 2. I covered some other basics as well, like what are the different types of Jira? There's a lot of different plans or products under the Jira family. So I helped describe all those. And then last month, why I'm not off to a good start on this training. Last month, we covered all the different types of project templates that are available. And so today, we're going to be taking a look at issue types, and I'm going to help you understand issue types because once you have a project, once you've selected the type of project based on our conversation from last month, the next natural conversation to have is what issue types do I need in my project? So today we're going to be covering everything that you need to know about issue types. Now, before we get too far, a couple of friendly reminders and some major announcements that I want to make. So announcement number 1, this is my very first course that I am doing officially as a full entrepreneur is what I'm going to call it. I don't like the word unemployed, but yesterday was my last day. I had been secretly working at a company for the last 4 years, and this is it. I quit yesterday. Yesterday was my final day. I walked out of there, and this is the first day of many more to come. And this is the first day where I can so just freely talk about Atlassian and just do what I want here with the Atlassian ecosystem. So I'm very, very excited. So this is the very first official job thing that I got to do now as part of this newfound freedom and new path towards entrepreneurship. So I'm very excited that this is the first course. This is the first thing that we're doing here publicly on the internet is going down this course. So very, very exciting there. The sessions are being recorded, but they will be available on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed and you want to help me with these new endeavors that I'm endeavoring into, make sure you smash that subscribe button. If you're watching this on YouTube, now's a great chance or an opportunity for you to smash that subscribe button down below. It helps the channel grow tremendously. It helps me hit those goals that we're trying to hit. And that kid of mine, he wants that silver plaque. So we got to get to those 100,000 subscribers. So if you're watching this, you haven't subscribed, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are not going to have any slides available. If you've attended any of my sessions, we've done 8 of them so far. This is the 9th one in 2025. You'll know that I'm very, very light on the slides. So we're going to get out of the slides ASAP and into Jira talking about all this. Again, friendly reminder, make sure you smash the subscribe button. Say hello in the chat. I always love to see where everybody's tuning in from. And so if this is your first time, let me know. Maybe you can just tell me first time here in the chat. And if you're a seasoned veteran, let me know how many of these sessions have you attended. Have you attended 1, 2, or 3? I've done, again, this is the 9th one of 2025. The 3rd one in this series. So let me know how many you've attended and also where are you tuning in from? We got people from Detroit. We got people from Belgium, a couple of people from Belgium. We got a couple of people. Where's everybody at? We got India. Laxman's from India. So we got a few people from India, a few people from Belgium. So very, very global market here. Brian, Tito, this is your second time. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Too many, says John Gordon, but it's all good. Okay. So Southern California, that's where I'm at. Craig, maybe we can meet up one of these days. We got Canada in the house. Hopefully y'all aren't too mad at us. I hear we have like some sort of a 25% tariff. Don't worry, this is all free here. So no tariffs at all. So maybe it's too soon for that kind of a joke, but Sarah, we're happy to have you here and excited. All right, hi from New Mexico, attended many sessions. All right, Susan. Yeah, your name is definitely looking familiar. And we got a chat here from Indianapolis. All right. So again, first course, I just quit my job. This is my first one, just kind of doing this entrepreneurial thing. We're on our own. And yeah, so it's very, very exciting. We do have questions and answers at the end. I do think this one's going to be a shorter course than all the other ones, but we'll see. I do like to talk a lot. So make sure you ask questions. Make sure you take advantage of that chat there and ask as many questions as you want. And per the norm, exclusive offer at the end. Now, what we do not have in this video, this one's not sponsored by anybody. So this is just me and just me sponsoring myself. So if anybody's out there, you have connections or you want your name on here, I typically do get a few hundred views per of each of these trainings. So Opportunities for sponsorship are definitely available if you are interested. And especially now, since those kids still like to eat, and we got to figure out how to feed those kids. So a little bit about me. I have ACP 520, ACP 120, and now I actually have the time to knock out the ACP 620. So we're going to be prioritizing that, but most likely we'll still do it after Team 25, which is only like 4 weeks away here, folks. We are like 30 something days, like 35 days away from Team 25. So I'm very, very excited for that. Hope to see you all in the chat. In fact, if you're going to Team 25, why don't you let me know in the chat? Will you be in Anaheim in 35-ish days? Who's going to be at Team 25? Let me know. I also do have a couple of engineering degrees. I have a bachelor's in computer engineering, a master's in systems engineering. I have this YouTube channel here, which again, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, no better time than the present to hit that subscribe button. But I'm also the co-host of the Jira Life. So if you're looking for a cool community area for you to engage with other people that love Atlassian as much as I do, and the Jira guy, then I highly recommend you check out this link tree. I'm going to drop a link here in the chat where you can go find the Jira Life podcast. So go check that one out and subscribe and support us. We do interviews, we do the good, the bad, and the ugly. We talk about everything Atlassian related. So that's it for that. We are going to jump into what are we talking about today? So today's topic is going to be all about issue types. We're going to talk about what is an issue type, and spoilers, it's changing. It's changing very, very soon. So we'll talk about that in a second too. I'm going to help you understand hierarchy, because in Jira, there's a hierarchy to our issue types, and it can be very confusing when you just take it at face value. So we're going to look at a graphic, and I'm going to help try to explain to you how hierarchies work for those issue types. And then we're going to talk a little bit more philosophical. So this course right here, specifically this session, is going to be a little bit more theory based than practical, because when we talk about issue types, there's some best practices and there's some things that you should know, and we're going to try to cover and give you all that information in this course. So with that said, we'll come back to our exclusive offer here at the end, so don't drop off just yet. And let's jump into Jira. Again, any questions, please put them in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat, and we're jumping into Jira. So the first thing that we want to start off with is, what is an issue type? Okay. And so let me actually go full screen here for you so that you can see me completely. So there we go. So an issue type is just work. It's different types of work. And not all work is created equal. So Atlassian has created something called an issue type, but very, very soon, it's going to be renamed to a work item. So everything's just going to be work. And so I think this naturally blends to, we're translating issues, work, into work, right? And I think this is a really good thing from Atlassian's perspective, because it's just going to give us better. I think it makes it easier to communicate, because sometimes talking about issue types, it can be misleading, and a lot of people sometimes get very confused by issues like problems, emergencies, fires, and Jira isn't about that at all. Well, I mean, it can be, but it's also for positive things like new features, new development, ideas, exploration, right? And so it's not just bad stuff that you're trying to fix, it's all types of work. And so whether that work is positive, like a new feature, a story, right, something new that you're creating, or something reactive, maybe you are fixing a bug, maybe you're fixing some sort of a defect or an incident, right, or reacting to an incident. All of those things are called issues in Jira, which again, they're going to be rebranded very, very soon. I don't have the exact timeline, but Atlassian is starting to pop out messages in my Jira and telling me that issues will become work items. And so think of an issue type as just different types of work that you and your team are responsible for. Some of that work is positive, right? Those stories, those new features. Some of that work is reactive to incidents or bugs or defects, right? And anything in between. A work item can be literally any type of work that you and your team are responsible for. Now, out of the box, Jira ships with very specific work items. And this is going to take some getting used to, because I am not used to referring to issues as work items. So hopefully I won't confuse you all, but it's a very transitionary. We're as of this recording, we're in a very transitionary phase where I do need to start getting used to the word issue and work items, because again, Atlassian's changing these on me. And so forgive me if I confuse you. I'm not trying to confuse you. It's just Atlassian muscle memory. They've been issues to me for the last 8 years, and all of a sudden they're going to be work items, and my brain is not computing very easily. You were interrupted with a YouTube commercial. John, we got to eat, man. Sorry. All right. Renaming plus to renaming issues to work type. This will be more clear for folks conducting their own user research. Yep, absolutely. So Heather, I think Atlassian has done extensive research on this. And if initially I was fighting it, I'm not happy with the rebranding from issues to work items. But the more I speak with non-software teams, the more that this makes sense, right? It's just Atlassian is really trying to appeal to a general demographic, a bigger demographic, and being pigeonholed into thinking about things as an issue, right? It can just be very, very misleading, right? Issue has such a negative connotation, and like I think people would be like, well, we don't have an issue. Like I don't understand, right? So just work item, I think makes sense. Although I do believe there's borrowing from my TFS days because I remember back in TFS, Team Foundation Server, everything was a work item over there. So it's kind of interesting how life works out. 8 years later, I'm back to work items. So anyways, so let's see what ships with Jira. So if you remember, I'm going to actually go down, we're going to go a little bit back into what we covered last month in case you missed it, right? But when you go to create a project, when you come here and you're creating a new project and you pick a template, that template comes with issue types. And again, these are going to be rebranded to work types, right? And so we have the traditional epic, story, bug, task, subtask. We're going to talk a lot more about those in detail in just a few moments. But these are the default ones that ship with Jira. And we're going to explain to you what's an epic, what's a story, what's a bug. Take a look at the hierarchy and whatnot. But most of the teams use the Scrum or they use the Kanban, which is the exact same issue types. Okay. But where things start to get interesting is when you start going out of the software world and into the what Atlassian calls the business world, right? Because over here we have different types of issue types, right? And so we have the ability to, let me see how to get this again. Atlassian changes it on me all the time. Here we go. Click on see details. There we go. See, so depending on the project template that you pick, you're gonna have different work types. Okay. And so it really does depend on what specific template you're starting out with, because sometimes you'll have candidates, sometimes you'll have employees, sometimes you'll have, I don't know, accounts, right? You can have anything you want. But this is the baseline that we start off with. So just know that whatever you start off with in Jira as your first project, that's going to govern what issue types, work types are available for you out of the box on day one. And your Jira admin, okay, so just this is more situational awareness than anything else. Your Jira admin has the ability to see all of the issue types that are available in your project. So as an admin, you can click on this little gear in the top right corner, go to issues, and the first place that you land is in this place called issue types. Okay. And so this is an admin only view. Normally you wouldn't see it as the end user, but here your admins are allowed to create more issue types. They can click on the add issue type button here, and they are able to basically see or edit any existing issue types. Now I have the default ones, like we were talking of epic, right? I have an epic, I have a bug, I have a story somewhere in here, probably not in this page because they're alphabetical. But I have a task here. I have a story somewhere around here. There we go. Here's a story, right? So these are out of the box. These ship with Jira especially when you pick your project template. But you may be noticing that I have some odd ones in here. I have a defect. I have an apple. I love Apple. We have a theme and we have initiatives, right? So basically, you should know, and something that you should walk away with here is that you are not, I repeat, you are not restricted to the issue types that ship with Jira. You're allowed to customize. I wouldn't customize the default ones. I would leave the epic alone. I would leave the story alone. I would leave the task alone. But you are allowed to create new issue types to support your specific type of work. So if you're in marketing, right? If you're a marketer, then maybe you want a campaign issue type. Maybe you want a issue type for an asset, right? That's all possible just by making issue types here that are custom for your project. If you're in finance, maybe you want an accounts receivable, right? Maybe you want an accounts payable, right? I don't know a whole lot about finance, but maybe you want those types of work. And so you can actually classify your work as an issue type. Now, I'm going to get a little philosophical here too, and kind of explain to you guys why do we care about issue types? Okay. And this is going to make sense because these courses build on each other, right? We're getting more and more and more and more advanced as we continue throughout 2025, especially in this course. But the reason issue types are important is because Jira fundamentally latches on real strong to the issue type because everything else, any fields, any workflows, permissions, and stuff that we do, they're going to be centered around the issue type. So it's important that you and your team get this correct. This is where I would spend a good amount of time architecting what does my issue type hierarchy look like. And honestly, for 90% of you, the out of the box stuff, your epic, your story, your task, your bug, your subtask, 90% of you, that's going to be just plenty. That's all you need. A 3-tier hierarchy, which we're going to look at the visual in a minute, right? But a 3-tier hierarchy of your epics, story, tasks, and bugs, and subtasks, that's all you need. I wouldn't customize it. If you need that extra hand holding, then this is where you can now talk to your Jira admin, or if you're the Jira admin, talk to yourself. It's a little joke. And add the right number of issue types. Now, the question is never, how do I add an issue type? That's very, very, very easy. But the real hard question is, should I add an issue type? Because a couple of things you got to consider. If you're in a team managed project, you can create hundreds of issue types that are contained and siloed to just that project. But, and yes, Herb, I probably would agree with this. All good Jira admins do talk to themselves. So, right. So if you're in a team managed project, the impact of you creating 50, 100 new issue types, very contained. But here on the screen that I'm showing right now, this one here, whenever I create an issue type here, this is a global issue type. This becomes part of the global system that any project, any company managed project can now borrow this particular issue types that are available. So you want to be careful because I've seen companies that have, again, hundreds and hundreds of issue types. And while it is possible for you to create an issue type centered around every little piece of unique work that you and your team are working on, I wouldn't recommend it. You have to keep a balance. And whenever you can stick to just basics, I would stick to basics. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not very fond of tools like Monday or Asana or ClickUp and stuff like that, because since you can customize the heck out of everything, teams just customize the heck out of everything. But when you're running a large corporation, you want to standardize as much as possible. You want your teams to speak apples to apples and oranges to oranges. You never want a lot of discrepancies between I work out of tasks and I work out of campaigns. Like, to me, it should all be a task. The task is just a campaign, right? And so I try to standardize as much as possible. So that's my little soapbox for this course, right? Is try to get your team, even though you can create basically anything you want, try to force your team, right? Recommend to your team that you all govern and kind of all agree on a very similar standardized set of issue types. Because again, just because you can create 1,000 different types is not a really good practice. So you want to be very, very careful there. Tanya says, I create a new issue type so I can work on use a new workflow, but I'm unable to assign it successfully. What could be the issue? So first, Tanya, you need to make sure that your issue type is in the project. So make sure you pull that new issue type into the project, because if you're creating the workflow over here, that's great. But if that issue type is not in your project, you will have a trouble or a problem. 2, you go to your, well, let me just show you. I think it'd be easier, right? Let's get out of here. I need to go back to Jira. Okay. So the first thing I was saying, so we're taking a little divergence, right? Folks, if you have any questions, like I said, I have a lot of time in this session. So if you have any questions, Tanya here is going to take advantage of the fact that we're going to have a little few extra minutes today, and we're going to answer Tanya's question. So when you're working on a new project, right? So you want to go to your project settings, which, by the way, Atlassian moved on me. They're over here now. And the first thing you want to do, Tanya, is make sure that under issues, under types, that you bring in your new issue type. So see here, I only have the default ones. There's no way you're going to be able to apply your new workflow to the new issue type if the issue type doesn't exist. So make sure first you're doing that. So let's just pull one in so I can kind of show you what that example would look like here. So we want to pull in, where's my Apple one? I like Apple. It's unique enough that nobody knows what that is and nobody will try to add it. Because folks, let me let me assure you that people do try to add my issue types to their Jiras, and then I'm like, why are you copying me? So don't put Apple into your projects, okay? So that's step one, Tanya. Number two, you want to go to workflows, right? And so when you go to workflows, there's going to be a default issue type. Sorry, there's a default workflow here. And as you can see here, my Apple that I added, so make sure when you go to workflows that you see that new issue type in here. But now you can basically go to click add a workflow, add existing, pick a workflow that you want. I'll pick this one here, click next, and this is where you pick the checkbox for that issue type. And this will correlate and associate your new workflow with the issue type. Okay, so when you click finish, that association has been done. There's a caveat here. There is a huge caveat. If your workflow is shared, if your scheme is shared with 2 or more projects, then you will not be able to do it here, and you will need to be a full Jira admin, and you will need to go into the workflow scheme. And so basically it redirects you to the scheme out here. And then at the scheme level, so you would pick like an actual scheme here. And once you're in the scheme, then here you would click on add workflow, and you would do the exact same thing. So we'll click that workflow there, and you'll click Apple here. Okay, and then it'll do it. But that would be the only 2 reasons why this wouldn't work. One, you don't have the issue type in your project, so obviously you can't link it. Or the biggest hurdle, or the second most common hurdle, is that you're trying to do this with a workflow scheme that is shared. So you can't do it at the project level. You have to come out to the workflow scheme and do it at the scheme level. So Tanya, a little bit of feedback. Hopefully that helps out. Let me know if it doesn't. Justin says, great admins answer themselves too. Yeah, so I can't tell you how many conversations I've asked myself and then answered for myself. So definitely empathize there. Laxman's asking, does Kanban team also work on story types besides task work items? And 2, are task work items required estimation and story pointing? Great question. So let's, it seems like you have a lot. So let's address one of these one by one. So do Kanban teams also work on story types? That is a great fundamental question that a lot of teams ask, right? And let me show you why. So I'm going to jump into a whiteboard here. I'm going to try to visually show you what's going on with Jira so you can understand fundamentally what happens here, because I think this is a natural progression to our conversation. So let me see if I can find, I don't know if I have videos here. Nope. This one. Nope. Oh boy, I need a whiteboard. I'm just going to, well, I don't know that I can make a new one. So I'm going to zoom out here. Okay. And I'm going to scroll this way just so you guys don't see any proprietary information. Okay. So here's how Jira works. We're going to zoom in here. Okay. We have something called an epic. Okay. And then epic is going to have, and I'm going to actually color code these so that they match what we have in Jira today. So an epic can have a story. An epic can also have, and I got to move this over to the side, a task. Okay. And the tasks are blue. And then an epic can also have a bug. All right. Is everybody following with me so far? Right. So these are, this is not the red I would like, but close enough. Okay. This is the general hierarchy in Jira. When you pick any software template, whether that's Scrum or Kanban, you're going to get an epic, and then you're going to have a story, task, or a bug. Those are all siblings of each other. Below this, for each one of these, you have the ability to have what's called a subtask. Now you can create custom subtasks in Jira. That's not a problem, right? But each one of these is going to have a subtask where you can link them like this, okay? And this is the only hierarchy. This is the only way that this works in Jira, okay? So now the natural question becomes, okay, so my team's working on tasks because we can generalize, right? I think a lot of people have a very easy mindset of like, hey, everything on my task list, right? This is my to-do list, is a bunch of tasks. I think chores, right? Like we're all just used to, we have a task. I think task is a very global, universal statement. But story, that's a very agile thing, right? That's a very Scrum thing. And so stories usually trip out, right? One way or the other, either the story or the task will trip a lot of people out because they're like, do I need one or do I need the other? Do I need both? I don't know, right? There's no clear guidance from Atlassian. So here's my 2 cents. Here's what I would recommend. If your team truly just needs one thing, right? Just one item, I would do this. I would let me rephrase that. I would do this. I would take my epic, I would take my task, and I would stop there. See, is this is enough, right? I would get rid of bug, I would get rid of story, I'd get rid of subtasks. Keep it simple. Heck, if you need to really keep it simple, I would do this. Just have a task. And in fact, when you do the business projects, if you don't pick Scrum, right? If you don't pick a software project, your business projects will sometimes just have a task level, or they'll have a task and a subtask. So this is very common. This right here is a very common thing. And if you've ever used something like Monday.com or Asana, ClickUp, this is a very common pattern where you have a task and a subtask. That's all you need. And this is okay. This is a good answer. This is an okay answer, right? Because you don't have to use everything. Jira is customizable enough that you don't have to use it all. But it really just depends on your team, right? If you have different types of work, then you're going to want to leverage these different issue types because they help you organize and structure your work. And so what I usually tell my teams is the following, okay? So a subtask, we'll start at the bottom, describes how to do the story, task, or bug. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? The subtask describes how to do it. Think of like a checklist. Okay, we'll put that here, checklist. The story itself over here, this describes what needs to be done. But more importantly, business, if I can spell business, value added. That means that the business is going to make money. So if you're going to make a task that you know is going to be a positive outlook for the company, for your company, then use a story, right? Because at the end of the day, these issue types just help you classify work, different types of work. And so a story is just one type of work. And so a story describes what needs to be done, just like a task does, right? Because the definition of a task is describes what needs to be done. No business, I can't spell business, value, but valuable to the team, right? So a task is still a necessary evil, is what I like to call it, right? It's something that your team needs to do, but the business isn't going to get a positive ROI from it, right? Or any kind of ROI from it. And so that's how I usually like to break it up, where we have stories that are like, okay, these describe what needs to be done, but the business is going to make money. And a task describes what needs to be done, but the business could care less about it, right? We just care about, for me, I need to go buy something. I need to go make a presentation. I need to go subscribe to a service or something, right? It's a task. It's something that needs to be get done, but not necessarily um, value to the business. But a task here should not describe how. That should always be deferred to the subtask, right? So anytime you're trying to describe how to do something, that's when you want to use your subtask. Okay. And then your bug, of course, is like describes something that doesn't work as intended, right? So if you're having problems with anything, open up a bug because you wouldn't want to make a task to fix something. That's what we have bugs for. Now again, you have the freedom to pick and choose whatever makes sense, right? Whatever is right for you and your team. And so that's kind of how that works. Okay. So that was a very long-winded answer for the first part of your question, Laxman. Next, our task work items required estimation and story pointing. So here's my 2 cents. Okay, I'm gonna add like a little box here. See if I can do this easily without. Okay, yes. So here, when we're talking about boards in Jira, and I'm gonna move this to the back here. To back. Okay, perfect. So when we're looking at these items in this teal looking color box, let me see if I can turn a different color that we haven't used. Let's go yellow. Okay. When we're looking at everything in the yellow box, all of those items have the ability to be story pointed. Should they be story pointed or not? That's a policy that you and your team need to discuss. My 2 cents, not all work is created equal. You should bucketize them. You should describe here's value added, no value added, problems. That's the issue type level. Anytime that you are going to take energy, effort, time from yourself, right, or somebody on your team to do work, right, that work, ideally, if you're running a business, you might want to track that type of work. And story points help us estimate level of effort. How complex, how much time are we going to need for this task, this thing, right? And so this is again a total process question, Laxman. This is not something that I would advise one way or another. This is all depending on your company and your team and the dynamics of your team. But the general idea here is, my 2 cents is, if your team is going to spend time working on something during a sprint, or during some period of time, right? You don't even need to have a sprint, but just during the week, right? Then it's good for you to go into the planning of that week with the expectation of understanding, is this going to take a long time or is this going to take a short amount of time? Because your team can either take care of 5 things or one thing or 100 things, right? And it just depends. And the story points are a good gauge for us to understand how much effort is a particular thing, or as Jira's renaming it, a specific work item going to take, right? And so I would personally put story points on everything that's in this yellow box. Some teams hate putting story points on bugs. I'm of the opinion that you can't fix a bug if you don't know what the problem is for your bug, and you can't estimate the bug, then you're not ready to fix that bug, right? And so I would personally put story points on anything that's in this yellow box here. That would be my 2 cents. Now, with respect to hours, I would avoid hours like the plague. Developers do not like thinking and estimating in hours, so I would stay away from hours as much as possible. All right, so you had a lot of questions here. Task work items must have plans, start date, target date, end date, especially required for Kanban teams, right? This is all very subjective, folks. Your When you are in a Scrum board, your start and end date are governed by the start and ending of your sprint. So your end dates are not needed, your start dates are not needed, because the start and the ending of the sprint is going to advise, it's going to coach or counsel your team, guide your team, really is what the right word is, right? On when they can start working on stuff and when they should finish that stuff, because it's the start and the end of the sprint. But when you're in a Kanban board, there is no defined start, right? So Kanban's all about push and pull, or pull and push, right? You pull work in, you push work, finish work out. And because of that, we have our rules are a little bit more lax. Our rules are a little bit more relaxed in that sense. So you could, if you needed to, add those dates. My hesitation though, or my guidance to you, Laxman, here would be very careful, right? Because teams generally don't like to be micromanaged. So I like to manage expectations in Kanban by putting like a fixed version so that you at least have, the end date, or when the bigger end date is going to be. But a lot of teams don't, they don't really like putting in these like committed dates, right? And I would say trust your team first, but if your team is not, they can't deliver on their commitments, before you go to micromanage by adding all these date fields, I would have the bigger conversation as to why are they missing their dates, right? Why are they missing their commitments? Because oftentimes it's not going to be because they didn't know that something was due tomorrow, right? It's going to be something bigger. And so just by making them add extra overhead and having to put dates isn't going to yield the result that you're expecting, right? Just because I know that my thing's due tomorrow doesn't mean that the problem that I'm facing, the challenge that I'm facing, is going to be any easier, right? The problem's still going to be there. So I would be very careful with putting all these extra dates for your Kanban teams, because you probably won't yield the same results that you're expecting. But it just depends on your team and the trust and the dynamic and the culture of your team. So Ezini here says, I work with the Jira admin team. I think we're a bit more than that. We actually built workspace solutions in Jira. Okay. It's really tough to get users to align to frameworks that we have developed. My guidance here would be, start with a pilot team. Start with a team that is maybe more receptive to change, right? A team that maybe would be more willing to, step out of their comfort zone and try things out. Because what you need is, you need a good success story. Change is really, 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 really hard. Like, teams do not like to change. It tends to be very disruptive. And so any time that you're changing something, you want to keep that in mind, that everybody's going to fight you. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? And so I would say find a group of people or individuals that are more willing to do the change, because you should be able to find one or two individuals in your company. Maybe you're one of them, and lead through a case study, right? Build the success story and show people the light. I think a lot of times people just can't, in their mind, visualize what success looks like, and they have a hard time saying, if I make these changes, I'm expecting a better result. But that's easier said than done. And so try to paint a picture for them, right? Try to show them, here's an example that we've already done. We've already gone through the changes. We've already hit the pain points that you're going to have. And here's this transformation. And I find that teams tend to have a better reception to that new framework adjustment, because now they're not the first ones, right? They're not the guinea pigs. They're not the first ones going through it. So hopefully, as in me, that helps. All right, Laxman's back with, does Kanban teams also work on story types behind task work items? So it's up to you, right? Again, the story and the task are just buckets. They're just stickers that you put on your work to classify what type of work it is. And so if you have just one type of work, then you just need the task. You can get rid of the story. You can get rid of the bug. You don't have to have them. But if your team is working on truly different, unique types of work, the more issue types, the better, because inside of Jira, we have our summary views here. And our summary view gives us a breakdown by the types of work. So if your team is consistently like not able to hit their deliverables because they don't know what's going on, right? They need to do a lot of research. Well, make a spike issue type, and you're going to see that your team's spikes are going to go up, right? And that's okay, right? But now you're going to be able to communicate with your leadership and set expectations of like, look, our teams are spending X amount of time just doing research. And here's the data. Here's all of the tasks that we did for the last month, and or work items that we did for the last month. And look, 75% are spikes, 10% are stories, 20% are tasks, right? You can now start doing that kind of narrative by breaking them up into types. So I'm a huge fan of having more issue types and having less, just because we can add context to the narrative. Are task work items required? Okay, so you definitely asked this one already. I think we're good. Okay. Last question here. Bugs require investigation on the primary root cause, something that is unknown and uncertain. So how on earth can we estimate bugs? Great question. So you handle that through your workflow. So I'm of the opinion, so when you have the workflow, and this is much deeper, bigger conversation. So that's when you might want to definitely take advantage of the fact that I have some one-on-one time. So you can buy some one-on-one time here. But you want to leverage your workflow, because I'm a big fan of putting before to do. I'm a big fan of putting these investigation, discovery, adjudication, triaging statuses before the to do status, that I then manage my bugs on a different board just to run through the discovery and triaging and adjudication. And once they finish going through the adjudication, when I transition it to do, that's when that bug is now ready to be in the team's backlog, and then they can plan into the sprint. But the steps to reproduce, the fixed version, the effects version, the severity, the priority, the expected outcome, the actual outcome, all of that has been documented, and we know what the bug is. And by the time we assign it to the developer, they can focus on fixing it. Because the last thing you want is your developer to spend all that time researching and figuring it out. That should be done separately, in my opinion, not during your sprint. Okay, so that's the last question that we have. So great discussion, great questions, folks. I think this was very, very helpful. Again, if you're too shy, you need any additional help, right? Again, I have my link tree. I'll drop it in here one more time. I have a lot of time now, so if you guys need any help, I have 15 minutes, an hour, but take advantage of them now, because now that I'm doing this full time to just help people out, prices are going to change very soon. So you want to take advantage of it here. Computer, how there are easy, straightforward bugs, but there are others that you don't. Yeah. So, folks, a bug, I can write a whole book on bugs. Bugs are a project manager's kryptonite. Okay. If you're not careful, the bugs will completely derail your entire plan, and they will derail you for. I've seen bugs. I've seen a simple bug Well, it wasn't simple. It's a very complex bug. But I've seen an entire bug like derail a program by 9 months. Okay, just because we didn't know, right? So you want to be very, very careful with your bugs. I find that bugs, due to poor communication, due to poor documentation, due to poor, I don't want to say skills, but what happens a lot is somebody that knows the system well, they become too expensive and they tend to get either laid off or they tend to go off to another project or another company. And so you hire these junior engineers, these junior people to take over. They don't know the system. So the reason that you don't know the cause of a bug is because you don't know your system, you don't know your architecture, you don't know how all the intertwining of this thing that you're building works. And that's when bugs get very tricky to do, right? Because you have somebody that's again, you don't have good documentation, you don't have good communication, good architecture, right? Stuff like that. Then bugs become very problematic, right? So if you're not careful, your bugs will dictate your sprints, right? They'll dictate your entire outlook on all your projects because your team is gonna have to like reverse engineer the whole thing. So you want to be very, very, very careful with your bugs, and you want to give bugs the right level of attention that they need. Adjudication before your engineer goes to work on a bug is very, very critical. I can't tell you how many times a bug has been created, assigned to the developer, and one of two things happen. One, it wasn't really a bug. Like the person testing didn't understand the requirement, and now you just wasted the developer's time. Or two, the developer is like, this works on my machine. So I don't know why it's not working on your environment, right? And so we have bad DevOps practices. We have bad scenarios where the engineer's environment, our pre-prod environment, and our production environment, come from a configuration perspective, they're not in parity, right? So this is where like Docker really comes into play to help us have these consistent environments that we can make sure we're doing equal level testing at all the levels, right? So you want to do some homework. You never just want to toss a bug to a developer and go figure it out, because there shouldn't be, right? Like you should have your developer and the person that found the bug, they should talk before anybody commits to fixing a bug. So that way you you have more knowns, right? Like you shouldn't just like you should always capture a bug, you should always create a bug, and you should have a very strict, if you see something, say something policy, and everybody should have the power to create a bug, but you should always look at them first and adjudicate them and validate them before we give them to our developers. I'm of the opinion that by the time something hits a sprint, we have taken care of the unknowns. We take care of anything that's unknown outside of the sprint. The same way project managers are expected to do grooming and refinement outside of the sprint, you have to groom and refine your bugs. So those are again my 2 cents. That's usually how I coach my teams. That's usually how I run my teams. But that's there. I think a bug that takes months of Sundays, lots of Sundays to fix probably could be a Mr. Gap in understanding. Yeah. Again, there's a lot of things that can be happening, right? When you have bugs that are that complex, if you can't safely estimate a bug, then your problem isn't the bug. It's something much, much bigger. Okay. So we got 15 minutes here left, folks. Let me remind myself what I was supposed to teach you here. So what's an issue type of thing we covered? Hierarchy we covered. Okay, some best practices. So let's kind of start ending the conversation here. Oh, let's see. We got another question here. Do you have a method that can easily turn a bug or incident that should be the genesis of a knowledge base? We have our Confluence tied into JSM. A great question. So do I have a bug? Yeah. So within Jira today, inside of Jira, you can open up any issues. I'm just going to open up I should probably find the bugs. I don't know that I have any bugs in there. Here we go. Here's a bug, right? Problems with Jira not working. So you don't have, so I would say that the opposite is very true today, but what you want is probably not as easily done. So today we have the ability to take this bug here and click the plus button and create a new Confluence page from it. So I can click this button and it's going to create a page, but I don't have the context of the bug in here yet. Okay. So I would do something like this where I would like title of the bug. And then in here, I would do /Jira and then pull in that specific bug, right? So I could do something like AAD-40, search for it, and pull it in. So when I insert it, the data for this particular bug is in here. And you can even customize the fields, right? So you can customize these fields so you can pull in any field that you want to pull in. So if you have like steps to reproduce and stuff like that, I would bring it. So I don't think that there's any way for you to take like the context, right? The fields that are in Jira to populate a Confluence page yet. I haven't seen that, but you can definitely from within the ticket, right? Within the bug itself, create a page, publish it, and then link it right as you're editing. Just link that bug, so it's like this. And so when you're inside the back in the bug, and I open up my bug, I'm gonna go full screen for y'all. But when you open that bug, you're gonna see that that link to that Confluence page is now linked. So Herb, not the best solution, but definitely a solution for you nonetheless. What does KB and JSM stand for? So KB is knowledge base. So how do you like a how-to article, like how to reset your password, stuff like that. And Jira Service Management, JSM, is the a help desk. So a lot of teams, yeah, so there we go. So a lot of teams use Jira Service Management to manage customer-facing bugs. And so if you have a customer that has a problem, they can go to your JSM portal because it's free for customers, and they can submit tickets to your team whenever they have a problem. Everyone's, I just want to make sure I wasn't crazy. Yeah, it's it is very manual, but so Atlassian just did something pretty cool. And so I would expect that in the long term, Herb, that this would get fixed. But Atlassian did this, which I really, really like. And so they did this thing here where if you take a table, right? If you take a table and you highlight the text, you can now create the Jira issue. And you can see that it auto creates the tickets for you, right? So it auto creates the title and it auto creates the description. And coming soon, you're going to be able to map the rest of your fields. So from Confluence to Jira, it's being made. So maybe for now in the interim, you describe the problem in your knowledge base and you create the ticket. I don't know that you would want to do that, but that's possible. But I would see a future where you can take the context of a ticket and create a page out of it. So maybe now that I'm out of a job, maybe that's an idea for an app to make. I would have to definitely go look at that. Interesting idea though. I really like that idea of being able to take a ticket and make a Confluence page out of it. That would be cool. So Herb, I'll let you know if I collaborate on this one, and maybe we'll give you some credit at the end there. But that sounds like a very interesting idea to have. Nobody steal it from me because I now have a newfound amount of time, and that sounds like a great idea that I want to go tackle. All right. Thanks, Herb, for that. All right, so we're down to the last few minutes here. Again, let me just wrap things up here with respect to issue types. Okay, so a couple of things that you all need to be aware of is this. We're gonna just spend a few more minutes on this summary, and then I think I'm gonna call it because, like I said, I was a little light on material today. So when you're talking about issue types, as I mentioned earlier, your workflows, the screens, the fields, they are all centered around the issue type. So anytime that you want different fields to show up, right? Like for a bug is a great example. Steps to reproduce. That is a field we only want in our bugs. It doesn't make sense for the epic or the story or the task to have the steps to reproduce, right? So we need to have an issue type, the bug, that will host or house that field, right? And so if you ever have a field or if you ever have a requirement, like I was working with somebody this week where they had a new feature, right? And they wanted to ask discovery type of questions for this new feature. Well, it doesn't make sense to add it to your story. So I made them a new feature issue type, and they had very specific fields that they wanted. So I was able to create those fields and just put them in the new feature. They don't exist in the story. They don't exist in the task. And this is a great use case of why you would want issue types, right? Because you have very specific requirements, aka fields, that need to be documented. And then the second reason is workflow, right? Your workflows are defined at that issue type level. So all your issue types can have the same workflow, or you have the option to create unique workflows for each issue type. And so it is very possible for you to create a very unique workflow for a brand new issue type that of your choosing, right? And then at the end of the day, the last thing that I'll close out with here is This type of work, right? Being able to break down and being able to communicate to your leadership, here's how my team's spending their time and energy. I love this distribution picture, right? Because it just shows you overall the different types of work that your team's working on. So again, very, very important stuff, very, very helpful things. I think stuff for you to go and understand, because this is step one. You need to have a good understanding of your issue types. And I would even go as far as saying, take this picture here that we were working on, right? What you want to do here is, for whatever issue types you do decide to go with, have a clear definition. Everybody in your team should know exactly when to create a bug, when to create an epic, when to create a story, when to create a task, when to create a subtask. And you want to have a very solid understanding of this. This is very crucial for this to for your team to be able to communicate effectively. So have good definitions. And then if you don't need something, if you don't need the story, right? Because the story is just throwing your team off, just get rid of it. You don't have to have all these issue types. Okay. And Zini has a question. We have a bug template that was drafted with developers to address the communication with bugs. Yep. So that's exactly how you would do this, right? And it's stuff that's only related to the bug and not anything else. All right, folks. I think that's all I had. I just want to remind you that as part of this course, we do have an exclusive offer. So I have a course that's normally $90. With this code here, which I'm going to drop in the chat here, this is designed for you all. This is designed for getting started. This is my Jira fundamentals for absolute beginners. And so if you have more questions or want to go deeper into all these discussions, I have this course for you here. Again, normally 90, down to $13 using that link in the chat. But more importantly, if you want some one-on-one time, a lot of you had some good questions here, but if you want a free $50 session, which is usually a 15-minute session, if you want it basically for free by just buying the course, sign up today. This is a today only thing. If you sign up tomorrow, if you're watching this recording tomorrow, it ain't going to apply for you. So you got to sign up today. You got to take advantage of it today only. I go back, Udemy tells me when people sign up, and I go to my Tuesdays, and whoever signs up for the class on Tuesdays, I message you. Now, the message doesn't come from me. It comes from Udemy. So don't be looking for an email from me specifically, but definitely keep an eye out for an email from Udemy. And we'll coordinate some time where I can sit down with you and chat for 15 minutes and answer any of your questions there. So definitely take advantage of that. Again, $50 bonus for free as part of the course. Now, I will also I have a lot of courses, so I'm going to drop the link here. If this is the first time in one of my courses, I have 48 planned for the entire year. And so as you can see, we're done with January, we're done with February, and we're well on our way into March. And so I have many, 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 many courses available. And so if you're interested in any of these, make sure you either A, subscribe to the channel, B, you're hitting that notification bell, or C, you're going to Bevy and you're signing up using that link over there. I don't really care how you sign up as long as you end up here. I don't get emails or anything like that. So for me, I rather just have you in attendance. So if smashing the subscribe button and notification is easier, then do that. But every Tuesday, we do have a live stream at 7 a.m. Pacific time. So hopefully you sign up for one of these other classes. And then finally, if anything, right, again, back to the link tree. If anything, if you guys just want to connect, right, totally no commitments for anything, right? But if you just want to connect on LinkedIn, my LinkedIn is in that link tree there. And so connect with me, send me a message. Let's chat. Let's be friends, as they say. But I have so much going on, right? So many things with like new books that that are now going to get published, new courses that I'm working on, because now I finally now have the time to make these courses and make these books and make like a lot of exciting things are happening or going to be happening over the next few months. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn so that you stay on top of everything that's going on. It doesn't cost you anything, and it's really, really cool. And so I do have a merch store. I also do have memberships and I have donations. So if any of that's interesting to you, again, I now have to figure out how to feed my kids. And so you will get to play a critical role in that happening. So that's it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. We will be back again next week. Not for this course. This course will come back in a month. But next week, we'll be talking about board settings for Jira admins. So make sure you sign up for that one. And I'll see you in the next training. Bye.